Festival presented by Horizon Foundation for New Jersey. First, before we get started, we want to acknowledge that the Newark Museum of Art is located on the traditional territory of the Lenape, part of the Alaquaquen Nation. And thank you again for joining us for this program. There's a lot more coming up, which I'll tell you about at the end of our session. And if you're watching via Zoom, you can drop questions and comments in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And if you're watching on Facebook, please write your questions in the comment box below. I'm excited to get started. So let me check in with my presenter today, Mary. First and foremost, Mary, good afternoon. How are you? And tell us a little bit about what we're about to get into.
Oh, hi, Daryl. How are you doing today? This is such a nice day to be joining you. The rain has stopped. The ones that was moving through. So what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be making some different paper cherry blossoms. They're going to look, and now I see myself on there too. They're going to look a little bit like this. So we have both white and pink versions that we're going to be doing today. And if you look behind me, you see a picture of a cherry blossom. I'll be telling you a little bit about the natural formation of the flower itself. We'll talk about the petals and the other pieces, because we're going to be incorporating that into our cherry blossoms too by drawing those pieces on the paper as well. So what we are going to need to be able to do our petals today is on our next slide. So if Megan can go to the next slide for us. There we go. So the materials you're going to need to do these cherry blossoms today is going to be some paper, either white or pink, because that's the traditional color of a natural cherry blossom. But if you don't have white or pink paper, if you only have, say, ruled paper that you get out of a notebook, or if you have green or blue or purple, it doesn't matter what the color of paper is. We will use whatever paper we have with us today, but I have white and pink with me today here. You're going to need some markers. I'm going to be using some water-based markers. You'll need a pair of scissors. You'll need some glue, and this could be either a glue stick or liquid glue. And you'll need a pen or a pencil. I'm going to be using my pen to draw on the paper so that you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. You can also do that same drawing, but I'm also going to be numbering the petals to make it a little bit easier to see which ones I'm going to be cutting out and how we're going to be forming the flower today. So that's what we want our pen and pencil for. And also, if you notice the flower here, if I turn it to the side, you see how some of the petals are curved. We're going to be using that pen or pencil to help curve those petals too. So it's going to have a dual purpose today. Okay, so those are our materials. So what I'd like you to do, since we are going to be doing this a couple times, is if you don't have your materials ready right now, you can run off and get them. I'm going to be showing you how to do this multiple times. So if you want to sit back and watch the first time, that is perfectly fine, because we're going to be doing this at least 3 times in the session that we have today. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to be giving you some information on different cherry blossom facts that I have for you throughout the presentation as well. So are you ready to start, Mr. Darrell?
I'm excited. I'm ready.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and change my camera point of view so you can see my workstation. So allow me to do that.
And I'm going to just sit to the back of the class.
All right, so here, oh, say again, Daryl?
I said I'll chime in here and there. I'm just going to sit to the back of the class so the focus is on the artwork.
Okay, perfect. So here I have my piece of paper. I actually have a pink one beneath there too. So I'm going to be showing you how to use both pieces of paper to make our cherry blossoms today. But I'm going to start with the white piece of paper. And I need to turn off my virtual background. Otherwise, that's going to be appearing as we go through making our cherry blossoms. And I don't want that to happen. There we go. So I'm going to start out with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So a traditional size of paper for us here in the US. If we have some friends joining us from overseas, we have 8.5 inches on the short side, 11 inches on the long side. Doesn't matter what size your paper is, because we are going to be folding this to make square pieces of paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is to take this piece of paper, and I'm going to take one of the corners, and I'm going to fold it downwards to make a very large triangle. And I know my camera is going to be going in and out of focus here for a little bit when my hands are in the way. But just like that, I'm going to make a really large triangle. So you're going to have an extra piece of paper on this side that we're going to cut off on here. So we want to take this big piece of paper, fold it down so we have a very large triangle. And then we're going to cut along the edge here with our scissors so that we end up with a fairly big piece of square paper. So that's going to be our first step, just making that big triangle. And to get the size of cherry blossoms we're going to be making today, you will actually be making 4 smaller squares of paper out of this big one. So once we've cut off that extra piece, we're going to fold our paper back out. So we have this nice 8.5 by 8.5 inch of paper. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the top edge, we're going to fold that down to the bottom edge, just like this. And again, if you just joined us, you can watch how I do this the first time. Just sit back and watch, because I'm going to be doing this multiple times throughout our session today. So we're going to make a rectangle now out of our square. So again, we're going from our square piece of paper, taking the top edge, folding it down to the bottom edge, making that rectangle. Now we're going to take this side, fold it over to the opposite side here, so that we're going to have 4 layers of paper, all one on top of the other, and they're all going to be in a square shape, just like that. So I'm going to press my edges really hard to make really nice creases in there so they're easy for you to see. Once I've done this, I'm going to unfold my paper. So I'm going to go through this one more time. So we've made our square piece of paper. We're going to take the top edge, fold it down to the bottom. Make sure our creases are really straight and really flat. Then we're going to take this edge, bring it over to this side, and fold down our edges and our creases again, just to make sure everything is as flat as it possibly can be. So when we unfold, we see that we have 4 squares. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what we're going to do now is we are going to cut our paper along the lines that are connecting these 4 pieces together. So along the main folds, going across and vertically through our paper. So we have 4 separate pieces of paper. I'm sorry about my camera focusing and unfocusing. I'm going to see if I can fix that in a little bit here. But let me go ahead and cut my paper. And for right now, we're going to cut through these 2 longer folds just to make 4 smaller pieces of paper. And it does not matter if they are not perfect, because we will be cutting off a little bit more paper. So if the edges are a little rough, that's going to be perfectly fine. Just like that. So there's 1 and 2. And then here we go with 3 and 4. And again, for any friends who have just joined us, sit back and relax and watch how we do this the first time, because I'm going to be showing you how to do this at least 2 to 3 more times. So at this point, we have our 4 separate squares of paper. So each one of these squares, try to get it in there and focus. Each one of these squares is going to end up to be a flower about this size, so about palm size. So we're going to take just one of these pieces of paper, and I'm going to take you through the steps that we need to do to make our cherry blossom flower. So I'm going to remove 3 of these, and I'm going to stick with just 1 piece. So with 1 square piece of paper, what you're going to do is you're going to fold it into a triangle. So with some of our pieces, it already has that center crease going diagonally, so it'll help us to fold it into a triangle. So that's fold 1. Fold 2 is going to be taking this corner and matching it up with this corner. So we're going to fold it again in half to make a smaller triangle. Try to get your points together as best you can. Just like that. And then we're going to fold it 1 more time, this point to this point. So we're basically folding this piece of paper 3 times into smaller and smaller triangles. What this is doing is it's going to give us the petals of our flower, folding it this much. So I have my triangle right here of many, many layers. So if we look at this, we see that we have 1 edge on this side. And if we open it up on the other side, we see that we have 3. We have 1, 2, and 3 layers on that other side. So what we want to do is we want to find the straight edge where we only see that one fold. We want to lay that down. I'm going to lay this so it's from your point of view. This is going to be the center of the flower. So the petal we need to draw on this part. So I'm going to grab my pen and I'm going to draw a curved line. If my pen has any ink, there we go. Curved line on here, just a little bit of a curve on the top. And that is going to be the top of our petal. I'm going to make that a little bit darker so you can see it a little bit better on camera. Just like that. So we're going to draw that curve because that's going to be the top part of our petal or the outer part of our petal. What we're going to do now is go ahead and cut along that line. And this is going to be cutting through quite a few layers of paper. So for any of our younger viewers, if you need a little bit of help, maybe grab an adult in your household who can help you with this cutting. But again, our friends who've just joined us, if you want to sit back and watch this first time through, I know it seems like I'm going through fairly quickly. I'm going to take my time the second and third times. We're going to go a lot slower, but I just want to give you an idea of how we're going to be doing this today. So after we've removed that excess piece of paper, we're going to unfold everything, and you'll see we're going to have 8 petals on here, and I'm going to write them down for you. So we have petal number 1 is here. Petal number 2 is here. Petal number 3 is there. And then we have petal number 4, petal number 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we have 8 total petals on our flower here. And I did see a message in the chat saying that somebody wants to know where to cut for that, to make the petal. So I'm going to show you one more time. I'm going to fold this back up. And I'm going to take another one of my pieces of paper really quickly and fold it into that triangle shape that we had before. And I'm going to show you a second time where to draw that petal. All right. So here we have our triangle. Again, remember, we want to make sure, focus camera. Okay, let me put that down, the camera focus. There we go. We want to make sure that we're looking at the edge where we just see one fold. We want to make sure that the edges where everything is coming out like this, where it looks kind of like a paper airplane, that's going to be the top of our petal. Down here is going to be the base of our flower. So we need to draw our petal from this corner over to this part. So we're going to have the petal be on this portion of the paper. So this is the area where it opens to those 3. This is the area where we have that flat edge, that flat fold that we see. So we want to draw our petal going from this side over to this side. So let me do that again with my pen here. So from your point of view, it would be going from this edge all the way over to this edge. Just like that. So that's how you're going to draw your petal. Okay. So let's go back. The reason that I numbered these, because I saw someone put into the chat, you don't need to number them. Actually, yes, we do, because we need to remove 2 of them. And for some people at home, it might be easier to remember, oh, I'm removing these 2 numbers of the petals. So that's why we number them. So what I'm going to do, because we want to be able to form our petals, we want to be able to form our flowers, and our cherry blossoms are going to have 5 petals in the ones that we are making. We need to have 6 petals on our paper here. So notice we have 8. So we need to remove 2 of them. So I'm going to remove numbers 7 and 8. Yeah, you can write them in pencil if you want, and then you can erase them later. But this is going to be on the back of the flowers, so we don't have to worry about them being seen. So I'm going to take my scissor, And I'm going to cut between number 8 and number 1, all the way down to the center of the flower. And I'm also going to cut between numbers 6 and 7, all the way down to the center of the flower. So I'm going to remove 2 of my petals because we don't need them to make our 5-petaled flower. So we should have something that looks like this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 petals at this point. So at this point, what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and we are going to color. So again, I said you can use some water-based markers. You could use crayons or colored pencils if you want to. It just depends on what you have available to you. I'm going to use 3 different colors of red today because I really want the drawing that I'm doing to stand out from the petal color as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some of the different parts of the cherry blossom on our paper here before we fold it up into its flower shape, because it's easier to do it now than it is to do it later. So I'm going to start with my darkest red to be the very center of my cherry blossom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a circle, or most of a circle, in the center, just like that, and I'm going to color it in, because this is going to be the center, the heart of my cherry blossom. Now, cherry blossoms normally in nature are either white or pink, and I'm going to choose to have a white cherry blossom that has a lot of pink color in the center, and we have to add, since this is a flowering tree, we have to add the pollen. So on the pollen, we have to draw lines where the pollen is going to be located at the end of these lines. These lines are called the stamen. If we add our lines together, which are our filaments, we add the pollen on it too. This is called the stamen of the flower. So I'm just drawing some lines in there. It doesn't matter how many. Each cherry blossom is going to have a certain number, but we're not going to focus on having exactly the number that we might find in nature. Again, this is our interpretation of how to do this. We're going to take another color of marker and I'm going to make my pollen on the end. So I'm drawing like little hearts, little balls on the end of those sticks. And this is going to be the pollen part of that stamen. So a stamen is a part of a flower that allows the flower to pollinate other flowers. So we have our pollinators, our friends like the bees and the hummingbirds that might come by and drink some of the nectar or get some of the stuff from the flower and then fly from one flower to another. That helps the pollen to spread so that the flowers can live a healthy life, the tree can live a healthy life. So we've drawn the center of our cherry blossom. We've drawn the stamens in there as well. Now we need to glue. And that's another reason why I have my petals numbered. We have petal number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5, and number 6. What we're going to do is we are going to put petal number 6 behind petal number 1. So petal number 6 is going to be on the top. Petal number 1 is going to be on the bottom when we're looking at the back of the flower. So when we're looking at the front of the flower, petal number 1 is on the top. Petal number 6 is on the bottom. So we're going to glue these 2 petals together to give our flower its shape. So I'm going to use some liquid glue to do this. And I'm going to check my petals. Yep, so I want to put just a little bit of glue on petal number 6. I'm not going to put a lot of glue on there because I don't want to make my paper too wet. And it's okay if I drew on petal number 6. It's going to be hidden behind petal number 1. That's not a problem. I'm going to put it behind petal number 1, just like so. And I'm going to hold it together for maybe about 10, 15 seconds, because we don't have to hold it together for too long for that glue to start doing its job. So at this point, we have a cherry blossom that is kind of closed. So this might be one that you would find early in the morning as the blossoms are starting to open. But these tend to be difficult to use for decoration because when you tape it to a surface, You might be able to see a little bit inside the blossom, but you can't see the whole blossom's beauty. So one step you can do beyond this is to take your scissor. And the reason we drew those stamen in there is because that's going to be a guide for us. We are going to cut alongside each petal on those folds that we had to allow the petal to open up a little bit more. And I'm only going to cut about halfway between the portion where the petals meet each other down into the flower. So I'm going to show you about how far I'm going to do that. So it's only going to be a little snip, only about that much. So I only went down to where I drew the tops of the stamen. I'm going to do that for each petal. I'm going to cut on the side of each petal down to where I drew those stamen, because that will allow the petals to bend back and we'll be able to see the flower a little bit better. So again, we're going to cut down just to where the stamen is on these petals, because this is going to allow our flower to open up a little bit more. So just like that. So we cut it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times because we have 5 petals. And we're going to slowly bend back each one of these petals, opening up our flower just a little bit like that. So we can see more of the beauty of our cherry blossom. Now, if you want, you can also take your pen or your pencil and you can put it behind the petal and bend the petal over the pen. So kind of wrapping it around the pen, because that'll give it a nice curve to your petal as well. And again, for any friends who've just joined us, this is just our first run through. We're going to be doing this a couple more times. I'm going to go a little slower on the next 2 because I know we'll have some people following along at that point too. We want to take our time to build some of our beautiful cherry blossoms so that we can use these to decorate our homes. We might be able to make them into some hair accessories, or maybe some accessories you might use as jewelry that you put around your neck or around your wrist, or use them as maybe wall decorations or decorations on a countertop or maybe on a desktop as well. So that's our first cherry blossom of the day. So some fairly basic steps. I know I did go through them quite quickly, but we're going to do it at least 2 more times, and I'm going to go really slow with this. But before we do that, I'm going to leave that one there. I want to tell you a few cherry blossom facts. So one thing that we know about cherry blossoms is that there are over 200 different varieties of cherry blossoms in Japan alone. Some varieties have blossoms with 5 petals like we're doing today, but others can have up to 100 petals. So the most common color for cherry blossoms, as we said before, is white, but there are other ones that come in pink as well. And there are some that will actually change their color during the blooming period. They go from greenish yellow to white before turning pink. So cherry blossoms are very different as we go from tree to tree. So even though quite a few of them we might see as blue, there are quite a few that are pink, and some of them even change color as they go through their blooming cycle. One other piece of information, I'll leave this one here, is that cherry blossoms are actually the national flower of Japan. They're known as Sakura in Japanese. And these pale blossoms are a symbol of more than just spring. They stand for renewal and for hope. So those are some nice cherry blossom facts that I have to share with you today. So what we're going to do, I'm going to leave this one here as an example. We're going to go ahead and make a second one of the same color, and then we'll go through and do our pink one as well. So again, we're going to start with our square piece of paper. We're going to go ahead and we are going to take one corner and fold it down to the other corner. So even if I label this here, let's go ahead and label it as well. I'm going to put a number 1 up here, and I'm going to put a number 2 down on this side. So I'm going to go from corner number 1 down to corner number 2. So matching up those corners, Basically taking this square and making it into a triangle. And if your lines aren't perfectly straight, that's okay, because again, we're going to be cutting off some of our paper. All right, so we folded corner 1 to corner 2. I'm going to label again. Let's call this corner number 3. And I'm going to call this corner number 4. There we go. So I have corner number 3 up here, corner number 4 over here. I'm going to take corner number 3, lift it up, and fold it down to corner number 4. Just like that. So we're taking a piece of paper that is square. We fold it into a triangle once. We folded it into a triangle a second time. Now, we're going to take corner number 5 and corner number 6, like this. So 5 is over here, 6 is over here. We're going to go from 5. We're going to pick everything up because there's 2 layers here. Pick everything up and go over to corner number 6 and fold one more time. So we've taken a square, and I'm going to unfold this and do it again, just so we can see. We've taken a square and we folded it quite a few times into a smaller triangle. So let me unfold again. So here we go. So we have corner number 1 on this side, corner number 2 on this corner. So we're going to take corner number 1, fold it down to corner number 2, just like that, to make a fairly good sized triangle compared to our piece of paper. Then we have corner number 3 that's up here, corner number 4 that's down here. We're going to take corner number 3, match it up with corner number 4. So we're going to flip and turn, match those 2 up so we have a smaller triangle. Then we have corner number 5, which is here, and corner number 6, which is here. We're going to take corner number 5, all the layers, because see, we have 2 layers here now. Over on corner number 5, we're taking both of those layers and bringing them over to corner number 6. So we need to fold this many times because we need to have quite a few petals for our flower. So at this point, we're done folding our triangles. Now we need to draw where we need to cut the petal. So if you look at your triangle, you notice one side has 3 points on it. We have a couple different layers here. We can count 1, 2, 3 points. This is going to be where you're going to draw your petal. On the other side of your triangle, you should see one side that has 1 crease right over here. This is going to be the main body of your flower. So I'm going to turn this around for your point of view here. I'm going to open it up again. So see, we have 3 layers on this side, 1, 2, and 3. Actually, we have more than 3 layers, but we have 3 points, 1, 2, and 3 over here. And if we flip this side up, you see it's just one fold on that side right there. So the point that's pointing towards the bottom of the screen, that's going to be the center of our flower. So our petal, I'm going to hold that down there, our petal has to be up on this side where we have those 3 points. That's where our petal is going to be, up on this side. Okay. Oh, and I see someone is using gift wrap tissue. That's fantastic because that will make a much more delicate flower, as you said. Fantastic. So again, we're going to use a pen to draw our petal shape on here. I'm just going to draw something very simple, just a very simple curve. You could make your curve big, you could make it small. The size of your curve is going to give you an idea of how big your petals are going to be. So I'm going to make this fairly dark so that you can see it on screen. So it's a little bit easier to see. And you could actually make a different shape of petal if you wanted to, because some cherry blossoms actually have a little V-shaped part in the middle of their petal too. So you could make it look kind of like the top of a heart if you wanted to. But I'm going to keep mine fairly basic just so it's easier to see on the camera. So if I take away my finger, where my finger is now, this is the portion we're going to cut away. This is the portion that's going to be our flower. So again, we have our fold on this side, one thick fold. On the side where our petal is, we have 1, 2, and 3 points, just so that we're making sure that we're not using that as the bottom of our flower. We want the bottom of our flower to be over on this side because that's where everything's going to be connected together. So at this point, we are going to cut along this line and get rid of this portion of the paper because we're not going to need that. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to cut along my line here. Just like so. And I'm going to remove that piece of paper. I always like to save these pieces of paper because you could make little leaves out of them and color them green if you wanted. So there's always a use for those smaller pieces of paper. And at this point, we're going to unfold. We're going to count our petals again. We should have 8. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we have our 8 petals. So I'm going to label those again. Again, you don't have to label them, but I'm labeling them so it's easier for you to see what I am doing. So I'm going to go ahead and label 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, just like that. So again, if we're a little bit late, 5 petal cherry blossoms. So we need 6 petals to be able to make this shape. We have 8, so we need to remove 2. So we are going to be removing petals 8 and 7 from our piece. So we are going to be cutting along this line here and along this line here. And I saw someone put in the chat that they're cutting the petals, but everything seems to be falling apart. You need to make sure when you have your flower folded like this and you have the edges, oops, I need to refold it here. When you have your flower folded, let's go this way. That'll work a little bit better. When you have all of your paper folded and you have that additional piece off to the side, let's put it on this side here where I've drawn the line. You want to make sure the side that you're putting that petal on is where those 3 pieces are separate and you're not having that be the base of your flower. That might be one of the reasons that your flower is coming apart when you cut the petals, that it all falls apart, because you might be putting the base of your flower where these 3 points are. You want to make sure the top of your petal is where that is. All right, so try folding another piece of paper and make sure that the base of your flower is along that edge. And those 3 points that we see that we can open up, those are as far from the base as you possibly can be. All right, so let's go ahead and unfold one more time. Remember, I'm going to be removing petals 8 and 7. So I'm going to use my scissor to cut along the lines here to remove those petals. And again, the reason we do this is because we are trying to make a 5-petaled flower. So we need 6 petals because 1 petal is going to go behind another to bring all of our petals together. So that's why we have 6 petals on this. Okay, so this is probably going to be the last cherry blossom that we make because I just got a 10-minute warning that we have just a few more minutes left. So don't be frustrated if we haven't quite gotten everything done yet. We will stay on to finish this cherry blossom. And this session is being recorded, so this will be uploaded to our social media too. So when you watch it later on, you can pause the video, you can rewind the video, you can fast forward, whatever you need to do to be able to make your own cherry blossoms, okay? So I'm going to use these numbers on the back of my flower, just like I did for this one. So I'm going to flip it over and we're going to do our coloring. So again, you can choose whatever color you want the center of your cherry blossom to be, whatever color you want the stamens to be, which are those lines coming out from the center that have the pollen on the top. So let's go ahead. I'm going to choose, and again, for those of us who joined us a little bit late, for it to show up well on the camera, I'm going to use 3 different colors of red for the center of my cherry blossom and for the stamens as well. So I'm going to choose this time, I'm going to go with the medium color of red. It's more of a fuchsia color here. I'm going to make a circle for the center of my flower right here. I'm going to color that in. One of the reasons that the flower's center is darker than the petals is to help attract those pollinators we talked about earlier, to help attract the bees, to help attract the hummingbirds, because they tend to be attracted to those, well, hummingbirds especially tend to be attracted to the color red. So they want those animals to come by because then those animals will carry away some of the pollen that can then be used to pollinate other plants and other flowers as well. All right, so we have our center of our cherry blossom here. We need to now draw the stamen. So I'm going to use my lightest color of red and draw some lines on each petal. You can make them long, you can make them short, you can curl them if you want, absolutely. It's all up to you because this is your interpretation of a cherry blossom. I'm just going to put a few less on this one than I did on the first one. And then for my pollen at the very top, I'm going to use my darkest color of red, just because it shows up really well against the background of the white petals. So 1 and 2, 3 and 4, you can make little heart shapes for this. You can make little balls for this as well. It's up to you because again, this is your interpretation of a cherry blossom. Put it up there. Few more, just like that. All right, so the last thing we need to do to form our cherry blossom together, notice we have petals 1 and petal 6. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put petal 6 from your point of view. It's going to go in front of petal 1, and we're going to glue those 2 together. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to take my glue. You can use a glue stick or liquid glue. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on my petal 6 over on this side, and I'm going to use the orange cap to sort of spread it around a little bit, because you don't want a lot of glue because it'll make your paper a little soggy. And then I'm going to put petal 6 on top of petal 1 from your point of view. So petal 1 is going to be on the center here. Petal 6 is going to be behind. I'm going to push it together just for a few seconds so the glue can start doing its work. And there we have our second cherry blossom. So again, if we want to pull the petals backwards like this, we have to cut along the folds in between each of those blossoms. So I'm going to quickly do that for us here so that our friends who joined a little bit late can see this. So I'm going to cut down only to the top of those pollen balls that I put in there at the top of the stamen. I'm going to cut this down to those stamen in the middle. I'm not going to cut all the way down to the center of the flower, otherwise our flower would fall apart. So just like that, cutting it 5 times. And then I'm going to slowly and very carefully bend the petals back, just like this, to open the flower up a little bit more so we can see the beautiful cherry blossoms that you have made, just like that. So there is your 5-petal cherry blossom, just like that. Yes, using a glue stick gives more control of the glue. Absolutely. I unfortunately did not have a glue stick today. So these are examples of cherry blossoms that you can make with just some paper and some markers, a pair of scissors and some glue at home. All right. So I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Daryl.
I think I did it. I'm over here. I feel like I accomplished something this morning that I probably would not have been able to accomplish otherwise. And I didn't have glue, so I just kind of folded the corners, but I think I did it. It's not as delicate looking as yours, but I think they're kind of in there.
But Daryl, it doesn't matter if it doesn't look as delicate as somebody else's. You did your work. You made. I'm trying to turn on my camera here. I'm doing 2 things at once. There we go. Go back there. There you go. But you participated. That's the most important thing. Hopefully you had fun.
I did.
Yeah, perfect. There. Yeah, that's excellent.
I'm almost like I'm getting Mother's Day ideas. I don't know how much my mom would appreciate paper flowers, but I mean, if we're thinking about, repurposing old paper, right? Or if we're thinking about being
Absolutely.
environmentally friendly, this might be a cool idea to do for your mom, because Mother's Day is coming up, so
Mhm.
just a cool potential gifting idea for our viewers.
Absolutely. And then also, I know we talked about this before. I also mentioned for Father's Day because guys might like flowers too,
Yeah.
so
Well,
and anybody, whether however you identify, you might want some flowers, and paper flowers, they last for a long time. So other ways you can use this, again, you see, I don't know if you can tell I have flowers in my hair, but you can use it as a hair piece. You can have it as maybe something for a necktie. You can have it as a lapel piece. There's a bunch of different things you can do with these flowers. And this one's a little bit smaller than the ones we made today. That extra piece of paper that we had that we cut off of our big piece of paper, you can get 3 of these smaller ones out of this by folding this into squares as well. So it's using more of the paper up as you're making these cherry blossoms. So out of 1 sheet of paper, you can actually get 4 of these size and 3 of these size. You can get 7 whole flowers just out of 1 sheet of paper.
Wow, thank you
Yeah.
again, Ray. That was really great. I hope everyone enjoyed watching it as much as I did, and participating as well. I do encourage you all to sign up for our final session today for more cherry blossom fun at 4 p.m. You'll learn the art of Japanese tea. We also want to ask you to please consider donating to the Newark Museum of Art, so that we can continue to bring you cool virtual programs like the one you're viewing today. I also would ask that you look forward to our next community day, which is going to be Saturday, May 15th, Art Extravaganza. We've dropped that link into our chat, so if you want to get details about that, you can. And just for your information, for coming up this week, we have a lot of cool things coming up this week. Coming up this week, we have our Art Face-Off Battle of the Wards, which will be hosted by Newark's very own Dupree Do-It-All Kelly, who is 1/3 of the legendary hip-hop group Lord of the Underground, and DJ MD, aka Marcy DePina. This art battle is to see which ward will take home the crown, and the judges are going to be you, City of Newark. We need you to show up and represent for your ward, North, South, East, Central, and West wards. We hope that you are going to be there this Thursday. You can register free online, so go to our website, www.newarkmuseumart.org, to register online so that you can participate and cast your vote for the artist representing your ward. And I would ask that on the following day, Friday, that you stay locked here at the Newark Museum of Art and catch me on Happy Hour NMOA. That's the day after our art battle. I'll have my special guest artist Elijah Mitten, aka the Art Alchemist, joining me. And we got to look. You don't want to miss out. Just tune in. There's a lot more coming up. I don't want to give away all the cool things. I want to send or drop a little something for you to go in, check out all the other details on all the other cool programs we have listed throughout the week. So again, thank you, Mary, for that. We really appreciate you. We're dropping all those links in the chat. So again, click those links, find more cool programs to watch, and stay locked. 4 p.m. Japanese tea. Thank you all again so much. Have a great day.
All right. We'll see.